Welcome to the Tax Talk podcast and an exciting episode with Mr. Garth Epp titled Mindset, Method, and Motivation. Garth is a growth-minded strategic thinker who never settles in the success of yesterday but always builds into the future. Life flows through Garth to inspire and empower people who desire to move past their limiting beliefs to realize their true potential. Garth, just want to thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to hop on the podcast today. So, like I mentioned, we're talking mindset, method, and motivation. Should be a good kind of chat on how to get business owners in that right, frame of mind, move that business and, themselves to that next level.
Right on.
So, starting with mindset. Your business and life cannot outgrow the quality or level of thinking you bring to it. Can you dive into that for us?
Sure. And actually what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, Jared,
Sure.
I'm going to take a step back and go really the three main pillars, mindset, method, and motivation. Why I kind of put those together is those are the key pieces for peak performance. So we want to raise our performance. We need to do probably a bit of a refresh of all three of those, and it's a recipe that needs to come together.
Sure.
The three together, because if we only take mindset and method and we don't have the motivation, we settle in ideation and we have all these great ideas, but if we're not motivated to take action, they don't serve us or don't serve anybody. And if we isolate just the method and the motivation and we don't have the mindset, we're going to probably work hard, really hard, but not necessarily get to where we want to go. So it's that's why I like to combine the three, because if we have harmony between our mindset, our method, and our motivation, we're unstoppable.
Makes sense.
Now, we'll jump back to your original question.
Gotcha. So, your business and life cannot outgrow the quality or level of the thinking you bring to it.
So where do we go? There's lots to go there. So what I would say is, first of all, none of us are living our true potential. We are only living to the greatest awareness of our potential. And as our awareness grows of our potential, our results change and our potential grows. So why I like to say that, or not, it's not even just why, it's a universal law that our life cannot outgrow the quality of our thinking. And that's a powerful statement, because my life then is no longer limited by the circumstances around me.
Okay.
It's not just limited by, because this is how we can take, if we look at different businesses or different people, you can have the same business in the same industry, in the same town, sometimes on the same block, and one is thriving and the other one is struggling.
Right.
That's why some people say, we can't step forward until, and then you see another business that they're just stepping out and rocking it, and they're dealing with the exact same, I'm going to say, kind of outside circumstances as the other, but their mindset puts them in a very different place.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that definitely speaks to that mindset, because I think, everybody, say in Red Deer, Alberta, where we're at right now, are probably dealing with similar market conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's impacted by the same inflation rates and interest rates, but, it boils back to that mindset. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to use that as a crutch? Or are you just going to say, well, everyone's dealing with this. Where's the opportunities that I can find within this, marketplace that I can kind of take advantage of and push my business forward? So that's a good point.
So if you take a look back even at the 1930s, you get two different reports. It's the dirty 30s, it's the Great Depression. It was like doom and gloom and the world is falling apart. And yet, until the last few decades, that was the most significant time in history where more millionaires were made in the world.
Interesting.
So Was it doom and gloom, or was there opportunity? I think the answer is yes. It kind of now there's lots of circumstances that make it challenging, but our mindset and how we approach life, our business, absolutely affects the results that we have. So here's the good news. If you want to change, make changes in your business, make changes in your life, we're in control of our mindset.
Fair.
So there's things that we can actively do, and there's things that we can do to change the trajectory of our life and our business, and we don't have to wait, thank God, for the government. And we don't necessarily have to wait for other things to turn around for us, for our life to turn around. Now, do those circumstances play a factor?
For sure.
Absolutely. But how we respond with that in our mindset is really what's going to set our future.
For sure. I think that's good news that all hope is not lost. You can take what you've been given and push ahead and make something good out of a bad circumstance. I know a lot of small business clients of mine still struggling post lockdown season, but there are opportunities, like you mentioned. There are ways to pivot that business a little bit and take advantage of something that is there now that maybe wasn't there before. So it's just a matter of, like you say, getting that mindset framed correctly to be able to take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So the next one is a bit of an accounting touch here. So opportunity costs of new projects. What do business owners need to be aware of?
And I should maybe ask you, Jared. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go with that? You put the accounting spin on it. I know I know you want to go somewhere.
So, and this is probably more back to their college days, more of the studying, not necessarily what I do on a regular basis now. Probably applies more to the management style accounting, where you're taking into consideration maybe one product versus another that the business is, putting out there. A lot of it boils down to you've got to put your time in somewhere, irregardless of the fact whether it's project A, project B, product 1, product 2, your time's going somewhere. So taking those into consideration when you're making decisions, I think, is an important factor. And as a business owner, I think it's important to, get a good grasp of your time, because a lot of it can just be, I don't necessarily know, forgotten, but maybe not accounted for correctly in determining, what is a beneficial way of maybe using your time in project 1 versus 2, and getting to that point where you can, properly monitor these things and have an open and honest discussion with yourself and maybe with your team to say, project 1, it's got a lot of sunk time into it, but it's just not working for us. We need to pivot. We need to move into something else. And just being able to make those decisions, I think it's important, because a lot of business owners will get down these roads and, things just aren't working. Maybe something changed via the government, et cetera, maybe those opportunities just aren't there anymore. So you need to account for those times and make a switch if need be.
Sure. So what I would speak more your language here, and I would look at the one thing that I like to do with my clients is what is the ROI, but not just in our finances, and we our heads go to ROI, return on investment in our finances really quick, but what's the ROI on our time? So if we're going to be putting time in, what's going to be the result of that? And just looking at it that way can reframe it a little bit.
Okay.
Now, the ROI on our time isn't necessarily always going to come back to a dollar amount.
Right.
It can come back to a satisfaction. It can come back to, an enjoyment of life. It can come back to a number of things. But what is the return, that I'm getting on the investment of the time I am putting into this?
Right.
And the thing is, most of us most of us spend our life, dealing with the urgent, non-important things. And those are the things that can just seem to suck the time away from us. And I know I fall into that trap really easily, and then I try to cram in some of the important stuff kind of later on. So that can open up a whole nother discussion, but it's really evaluating what is the ROI, and is it moving us towards where we want to go? And often, I see this quite a bit with different clients, is they'll get going on projects, or they get going even on different services that they offer because, I don't know, maybe because there's a demand for it, or because they think, oh, we do this, so we might as well do this. And they don't really step back to go, okay, is this moving us towards where we really want to go as a business or not? And sometimes, they spend more time, often, we fall into we may be talking about it a little later on, but that 80-20 rule, where we'll end up spending, 80% of our time, that's only giving us a 20% return. And that doesn't happen unless we take the time to evaluate. So we're going to step into some of those situations and maybe lose the perspective of our ROI unless we take time to evaluate and kind of process it. And again, that's one area where a lot of small business owners, we get caught in doing because we feel like doing is more productive than necessarily sitting and thinking it through and processing it and really evaluating it from an objective perspective.
Gotcha. I think that's probably especially applicable to maybe newer business owners. Typically, in most cases, there's probably a bit of time there where things are lean financially. So I think it's probably important at that juncture to especially reflect on that, return on your time as opposed to the dollars, because, you might spend a considerable amount of time over that first or second year just getting that business off the ground. But if you're headed to where that is that you're going, you've got this plan in place, and you can see, well, yeah, I'm not drawing this huge salary right now, but I'm taking these steps, my time is being invested wisely, I'm getting to this goal where I do know, eventually I'm going to get a bit of a financial return on some of that time there. I think that's probably an important piece for the new business owner, for sure.
Absolutely. And that can kind of tie into, one of the things that I like to refer to, who, not how. And as small business owners, often will when we get started and we're playing, wearing all kinds of hats, we're doing all kinds of things, we're trying to, maximize our dollar, and we're trying to, so we'll dabble in marketing, we'll dabble in web design, we'll dabble in writing copy, we'll dabble in everything. We have in accounting, and we're kind of doing it all because we want to save the dollar. And often we're putting, I think, a lot of the emphasis in the wrong area. Like, we're putting the emphasis on how we're going to do it rather than who could do it for me. And most of the time people go to, well, I can't afford it. But don't go through the actual process to go, okay, how much is it actually costing me to do this? And what would it actually cost me if I had someone else do it? And sometimes it's astonishing the time that's wasted. I've done it, where I've just wasted the time, and you realize, okay, now, and often we just create a mess bigger that we need somebody else come and help fix. And I know in your profession you never see that, so you have no idea what that's like.
Never.
But that who, not how, and I've actually kind of worked out a little bit of an equation, and I don't know if there's even somehow that we can share that through your page.
Sure.
That a little bit of a mathematical workout equation that's helped me and a number of clients to kind of objectively look at it and to go, okay,
Sure.
is this really worth my time and effort? And sometimes it is, but often people are surprised and go, no, this is not what I should be getting into.
Gotcha.
And that comes down to mindset. See, and that's kind of what we're talking about, mindset.
Yeah.
Where some people just shut that idea right out. And I know you've probably never heard that in your office. Like, well, I can't use an accountant because, they, and then you just kind of hear their beliefs come out. And so that's where the mindset comes in, where it just affects everything.
Gotcha. Perfect. So now that we've just talked about return on our time, now we're going to get into something that you had kind of noted: self-management, not time management. So we're looking for a return on our time, but now we're not managing our time. We need to be self-managing. Is that where we're going with this?
That's where we're going. This is kind of an obvious, but we can't stop time. We really can't manage time. Time just keeps moving. We're watching the clock there. It's moving, and we have this. Often we get this delusion that we can manage time, and we can't. Now, maybe it's just, semantics and getting down to it, but again, it's kind of a mindset. It's like, no, I can't manage time, but I can manage what I'm going to do within the time restraints that we have. And even just that shift has helped, helps many as we kind of step out of this, I got to manage my time. It's like, no, I got to manage me.
Right.
Again, that's kind of a mindset shift, but it's taking responsibility. And one of the greatest things that has helped me is I would tell myself a story, going back to mindset. I had a belief. I lived most of my life believing that there was not enough time.
It's probably true for a lot of people.
I would say it all the time. Well, there's not enough time. I'd like to do this, but I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. When I have the time, I will. And I had to realize that, why don't I have the time? What am I spending my time doing? And again, it's just a very subtle shift. But as I made that shift, it began to affect and how I was spending my time. And as I was going into it with a little bit more intention, it shifted, again, where my time was going, and then what results I was getting at the end of the day. So, it is important to really spend our time, especially in our business area. That's, again, going back to the ROI. Is the activity leading us to the outcomes that we're looking for? That's probably a good indication that it's worth, spending the time doing it. And if it's not moving us towards that, maybe we need to just back off and let it go.
Gotcha.
So, and that takes intention. That takes sitting down, looking at your schedule. Takes time looking at your activities. Takes time looking at, whatever is going to be very different depending on the kind of business, a service business or product-based service. But it's really kind of taking that step back and to go, okay, what is the return? And then just to kind of step back into that ROI conversation is kind of knowing what the end result is, because we're going to evaluate the activity differently based on what kind of ROI we're looking for. So what I mean is, if we're looking for kind of a quick return, say we were looking at ROI in the context of real estate, if we're looking for a fast ROI, we're probably looking for something that we're going to flip.
Fair.
Rather than we're going to hold. So we approach our finances that way. If we're looking for a quick return, we're probably not going to be buying a GIC. Now, can we get an ROI on the GIC? Yes, but is that the goal? Are we looking for the long term or the short term? What are we looking for? And the same kind of thing with our time. Am I putting my time in now so I can just get billable hours? Or am I putting my time in right now that I'm believing that is going to be coming back in a long term way, kind of playing the long game with the short game? Which is right? That all depends on what your goals are. It all depends on what you're looking for. So we can't just take a look at our time in one blanketed place.
I think that kind of brings up a good point, and you kind of touched on it before as well. I think a lot of small business owners and just people in general, there's always this agreed upon notion. When you have a discussion with someone, you ask them how they're doing, and it comes up, well, I'm real busy. Well, that's fine. Are you busy doing, productive things that are moving you to that goal? Or are you just being busy for the sake of being busy? Are you scattering, replying to emails throughout the day, and it, should take you maybe 15 minutes to deal with a chunk of emails, but it takes you, hours on end to get through this stuff because you're constantly back and forth. So I think that's a good thing when you kind of say a mind shift switch there, to focus on those things that are important, that move you to that place that you're wanting to go, as opposed to just filling your calendar with stuff for the sake of having stuff in your calendar. So I think that's a good point for small business owners out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for especially if you don't have the time, you hear yourself saying that. One thing that I've done is I've then scheduled time for the things that I say I don't have time for. Because, we basically do the things that we value and that are important. So I can say I don't have time, but if I have a client that calls me, I could be on the phone for an hour. Or if I have a client that says, hey, can we meet on Thursday? And I will move, sometimes heaven and earth, to the detriment of my family. My wife's not always crazy about some of the things that I move, but I will shift and make things happen because I make that a priority. And sometimes we don't value the other activities that we should. So there are times in my schedule, again, with some of my clients, they've worked out times where they've set appointments for themselves to go, okay, you know what, I'm gonna organize, my receipts. Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month at 3 o'clock, 3 to 4:30, and it's in the calendar. And they treat it like an appointment.
Right.
And they just kind of get in and get it done. Because it's important, because really great life management is becoming efficient and effective. So sometimes we just always are worried about efficiency, but it has to be effective at the same time.
Yeah.
And then keep, if you do that strategy, and set yourself some appointments, keep it. Most of us, if you got an appointment with a client, you're not going to double book. And if a client calls and says, hey, can I come at 3 o'clock? And you're like, oh yeah, I got another client, but come on in, we'll just get her all done and it'll be great. No, we would say, I know you want to come at 3, I have an appointment, can I get you in at 4:15? Like 10 times out of 10, most customers are like, sure. So we're not going to lose them right away, and sometimes we're delusional and we think that we have to just drop everything. Like they still come in, they're happy. They don't even remember that we asked them to change their time by an hour and a quarter.
Right.
But we prioritized ourselves in some of the things that we needed to get done instead of just pushing them down the line. Because again, I know you never hear that from your clients when they, deadlines come up and you're waiting for papers and. In fact, if you had a dollar for every time somebody said, "Oh, I didn't have time to get that to you. I'll get it to you next week," you'd be a very, very wealthy man.
I'd probably be retired at this juncture. No, that's a good point.
And I'm just going to add to that is often it actually takes us less time than we think, anyways. Especially some of those tasks, and I've been kind of reminded of that the last couple of days. I've had some emails that have come in. I'll go, okay, I'll deal with that later. I gotta read through that, and I'll deal with that later. And I have kind of aggravated the other party in it. And then when I've actually looked at it, it's like some of it in 3 minutes. I've proofed it. I send a quick text back, and it's done. And it's like, why do we just let this stuff add like mental energy weight to us?
Right.
When and that's really about managing me. Again, I have the time. We have the time.
Okay. Gotcha. Just about being efficient and effective.
Efficient and effective.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So you had touched on this before, something to do with an 80-20 rule. How does this apply to a business owner?
So the 80-20 rule is the Pareto Principle, Pareto rule, and it basically going through research upon research. There is a trend that that kind of shows up in a variety of areas of life, and that is the relationship between the 80% and the 20%. So in the insurance world, did you know that 20% of the drivers cost 80% of the accidents?
That's why my car insurance.
That's why your car insurance is up. 80% of the pollution comes actually from 20% of the major businesses. You probably make 80% of your profit on 20% of the relationships with clients.
It's probably fair.
There are 20% of 20% of the people commit 80% of the crimes.
Yeah.
Now again, there's some generalization, but as you start looking at variety of areas of life, this 80-20 principle rule, we spend 80% of our time getting 20% of the results. So where are we spending our time? And it's important to realize that we cannot change what we're not aware of. So that's where it's coming back to our mindset and taking the time to think about, okay, why, and evaluate. Why am I getting the result that I'm thinking, that I'm thinking I'm getting? And again, in your profession, I know that's what you do so well, is you help. The numbers don't lie, and they can help peel back. And I'm sure you've had a number of conversations with clients when you said, hey, do you realize what return you're getting on this aspect of your business? And they, again, could be spending 80% of their time on that, and it's really only, affecting, 20% of the positive side of the balance sheet.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know, not frequently, but it often happens that someone will come in to, say, review that year-end financial statement. And maybe it's kind of their practice to give their information to a bookkeeper once a year, right at year-end time. Beyond that, the receipts go into a shoebox or a bag or whatever the case is.
Because they probably don't have the time.
Correct. No time. So when they come in, we finally sit down, review these financials. They're a little bit taken aback that I lost money this year. Yeah, it is what it is. Like you say, the numbers don't lie. And I don't know, to me, I find that a bit disheartening for them because, you've probably expended a lot of energy over the course of the last year, and at the end of the day, you're worse off than when you started the year. So it is important to, keep on top of your financial records as that business owner to ensure that you're able to evaluate that 80-20 split. If you only look at these things once a year, you're just flying by the seat of your pants and you have no idea what you're doing. So it's important to stay on top of things, to be able to make those judgment calls to say, I am moving to this goal that I have set out for myself. I'm not just being busy for the sake of being busy. Because I think a lot of people end up doing that. They just work for the sake of working. And I don't know, to me that doesn't sound like a great way to build a life, to build a legacy. So I think it's important for all business owners, even experienced ones, to keep that in mind, for sure.
Yeah, because I kind of touched on, we cannot change what we're not aware of.
Right.
So, why is it important to, sit down with your bookkeeper and your accountant probably more often than once a year? Or what value can it give you? While if they're aware of something, they can make the change at the end of Q1 instead of find out at the end of Q4. Or, even at the end of each month. Again, depending on the business and depending on the structure, it'll be different. But then we can make those adjustments along the way if we're aware of it. And if we're kind of cognizant of and asking ourselves, asking our team the question, okay, are we getting, what is the ROI of the time, the effort we're putting in? Where is the 80-20? Are we, do we need to fire some customers? Are 20% of our customers taking up 80% of our time? Yes. When I was in the car business, that was absolutely the case, and you're busting your butt for, and when you're serving people, we serve people, and I understand that, and that doesn't mean that we don't, help everybody, but we can, with intention, curve our business and how our time is being spent, and often kind of tying those two ideas together as we spend, we're not getting the ROI on our time because we're spending it on the 80% that's only giving us the 20% of the result. And sometimes to shift that is going to take a major mindset change. Because, and you guys can fill in the blanks of some of the cliches. We've never done it that way before. We tried it and it didn't work. I know a guy and he did that, and, we tell ourselves these stories over and over again, and we basically just, again, we live out what we believe, and if we believe it's not going to work, well, it won't, because we probably won't even try it. So that's where that mindset just keeps coming, creeping in.
And I think that makes a good point too, looking at that 80-20, there's likely a good chunk of your clients that maybe don't align within what it is that you're doing at whatever that business is that you have. But those clients might be perfect for another business, and vice versa. And I mean, for instance, here, for us to, say, compete with fairly basic tax returns, something that H&R Block would do, it doesn't really work well with us in competing with them. If those clients were to go to H&R Block, they'd probably be well served, the price point is right, they're well taken care of, the return gets done, they're out the door. Whereas maybe some of the more complex files that H&R Block sees, those are probably more well suited for coming into here, where you can build a relationship with a partner or a senior accountant, and you can see that business grow through, the years and the decades. So moving those clients to the place that they probably fit best would help everybody, but of course you have some inefficiencies within the market that it's never going to be perfect. But having that focus, I think, on realizing, okay, this is my core, customer identity that I'm looking to pursue, and if you can go after those clients as opposed to maybe just taking on whatever business walks through that front door, I think that probably benefits the client and it benefits you as a business owner as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. So, what is habit stacking? How does that positively impact my legacy?
Habit stacking. So this is all kind of tying into, I'm going to say the kind of the time. Again, when we say we don't have the time, we don't have the time. Couple examples that I can say from my personal life, and one of them is, I'll bring my wife into this, is a couple of years ago, she announced to me that she was going to exercise 90 seconds a day. And being my good-natured, supportive, natural self, just kind of looked at her and I was like, are you what? And I just thought, like, what a crazy idea. And I kind of mocked her a little bit. And she decided that she was going to do squats every morning when she waits for her coffee to brew.
Interesting.
So she's standing there waiting for her coffee to brew. She has a habit of getting up and, once we kind of get up, moving around, we get the coffee brewing, and I don't know, sometimes wait the counter or kind of stand there or maybe yawn or whatever. So she's like, I'm going to do squats while the coffee is brewing. About 90 seconds. Well, after 3 days, it didn't make a big difference. you know what? That small change compounded the result over time. Like in 6 months, she was significantly stronger. Her motivation was, we had a young granddaughter, and she was like, you know what? I'm finding it hard just to pick her up off the floor and move her around, and I don't want to be that grandma that can't do that. That was her motivation. So she wanted to then, she had the habit of making coffee, and what she did, because she didn't have the time to exercise, she wanted to attach a new habit with an old habit that she had. And after 6 months, she significantly stronger. Now that throws in another principle of a small incremental change. Over time, we get the compounded effect, in the result. And that is one of the powerful things about, leveraging, time. But the whole concept of the habit stacking was, you want to add a new habit to your life, stack it or sandwich it, attach it to a present habit that you already have. So game changer for me is, I would tend to, in the area of, my business, come in, of a home office. If I'm out doing some business or out with a client to come back to the house with a few receipts, I'd put them on a pile or put them in a file. But I also had a habit of taking off my shoes when I came in the house. So what I did is I decided that I was not going to take off my shoes until I processed that receipt. And I had a little ritual that I, punched it into my computer or my spreadsheet, put a little tick on it, put it in the appropriate file that was, that my bookkeeper liked.
Yeah.
How long did it take? A minute, maybe. Okay, so I had the time to add a minute to my schedule. I also had the habit of taking off my shoes. So I was like, okay, I want a new habit of getting organized, processing my receipts. So I'm going to do it before I take off my shoes. And I kind of, we're kind of combining a couple of things that we've talked about, but my organization changed. So I never then have to worry. You had to worry about having a 4-hour event every quarter of organizing receipts. It didn't happen. I don't have big 4-hour chunks in my schedule easily. I don't have the time for that. But I have the time to add a minute to the habit of taking off my shoes.
Makes sense.
And I did the same thing with documenting my kilometers, my mileage. Same thing. When I got home, I just, again, before I took off my shoes, when I then had the habit, I actually did it in the reverse. When I had the habit of coming in, that's when I would process my mileage. And then I actually added the habit of processing my receipt at the same time. So again, it was just done.
Makes sense.
It was done. And so if there's a habit that you already have and you want to add something in, just attach it together. Start small. There's some really easy things that can be done that way. And it usually can help then change the efficiency of what we're doing as well.
Gotcha. I think that makes sense kind of in the line of thinking that, taking for instance, New Year's resolutions. People go from, I don't ever work out, to I am going to be in the gym 7 days a week working out.
They're not.
It's not going to happen. But like you said with your wife, you add that little bit of a tweak into your schedule, and then you do start seeing those benefits. And I know for me personally, whether it's a personal habit or something in the office, if you just kind of build upon things gradually, it's very easy to implement. And I think even though you're not going to see this big bang of results instantaneously, I think they do come along a lot quicker than you might anticipate. And then you're not having to, just completely blow up your schedule to change it, to fit something in. everything just kind of seems to flow more naturally. It probably reduces some of the stress in your life that you're unnecessarily adding into it because you're trying to do too much now. So I think that's a good point. If you just keep those small incremental steps going in your business, you don't need to go from $100,000 of sales to $1 million the next year. But you can take those small little steps, month by month, to keep boosting the sales or boosting your profits, whatever it is that your goal is. And then eventually you're going to hit that end goal and put yourself in that place that you're looking to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that, and my wife really talks about this as we work together in our coaching business, but encouraging people to lower the bar. And you don't have a lot of people that are out there saying, lower the bar. You need to lower the bar in your life. But we need to lower the bar to get some successes and get some wins under our belt. Even when, someone's looking at changing their eating habits. Like, focus on getting breakfast right 3 days a week.
Sure.
And this is going to tie all kinds of different concepts that we've talked about and will talk about, but, you're creating a new habit.
Right.
You're easing into it. It's doable. It's manageable. And we, as people, we have a tendency to, once we start seeing successes, it impacts us at a different level. You go to the gym and you work and you go in there, and the first time you're in, you slam out an hour and a half and you can't walk for 4 days. Like, you're not going back. What happened with my wife is, as she started getting stronger after doing that consistent squats, then she started wanting to walk more because she's feeling a little bit better. And it's okay, let's do, because we need to take the momentums of the win. And usually we take the momentum of the discouragement, and we,
Right.
because we go in the office, and again,
Good point.
they go in and they see that shoebox of receipts, and it's like, oh, I don't have the time for that. I don't have the energy for that. And it's like, that's going to suck me dry. And it's just, they're already defeated before they started.
For sure.
There's no win.
For sure.
But it's a great feeling when you can walk in with the file folders and say, here you go, Jared, this is what you got. And again, that information serves me. So,
Yeah, so finding those little wins in life and in business, like you say, you can kind of snowball those and build upon them quite easily, as opposed to, throwing out this huge loss that, everyone around you could probably foresee coming based on, where you were day one to what you wanted to do on day two. And then you throw that into your life and your business, you just kind of throw it in this artificial roadblock that, immediately punts you backwards, and then you kind of get to get back up the hill again. So setting yourself up for success with that correct mindset and just having those small little wins, always going, always pushing yourself forward, is probably a good plan for basically everybody out there.
yeah, I think so. So my encouragement would be, like, even hit pause now and just go, okay, what's one thing that I've been telling myself I don't have the time for? And what's one thing that I can do to just make a small win? So if you have that drawer, that bottom left-hand drawer full of receipts, or you have it in your truck, when I've worked with clients that have been in that case, and I've just said, okay, so habit stack, after lunch, the first thing you do when you come back from lunch, process 2 receipts. Just don't tackle the whole drawer. Just reach in, grab 2. Like, how long is it going to take you?
Not long.
Not long, like minutes, maybe seconds, depending on your system. Okay, but if you do that every day for a week, now, is 14 going to really get you through there? Well, I don't know. Maybe you get going and you go, wow, that was easy. I'm going to grab another one. Let's do 3 today. Are you going to see that drawer get empty after the first week or month? Maybe not. But if you do that every day, you're going to be astounded at the result that you see, and you did not have to go through that, life-altering, 6-hour, 6-hour event on some afternoon when you would rather be, on a sunny day, you'd rather be out with the family, but no, you pushed it to the last minute, and now you have to do it because of the deadline. So even though lower the bar, lower it. Do it really low so you can win and achieve it, and then you'll start adding up to it. So that's been a game changer for me and for many that we work with.
Perfect. No, that's good. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So I know we were going to kind of look at method and motivation. I know we are kind of running long on the time here. All good. I think what we are probably going to do is maybe divide this up, maybe into 3 episodes, if that works for you.
Yeah.
We could just do one for mindset, method, and motivation. That way we kind of get it all nice and succinct for everybody out there.
Absolutely.
So I guess then in wrapping up mindset, is there anything else that, maybe I didn't cover in the couple of questions that I presented that you want to get out to the audience in closing?
Well, my encouragement would be for everyone just to kind of take a look and just, first of all, we have to recognize that our results are a reflection of our beliefs, our mindset.
Gotcha.
Because most people, and then once we recognize that, then we know where to put our energy. So for instance, like our mindset, our beliefs, really drive our thoughts. Our thoughts and attitudes drive our behavior, and our behaviors then drive our results.
Makes sense.
Most goal setting that people do, or most changes that people start making in their life, they focus on the results. They focus on the activities.
Right.
So instead of recognizing its beliefs that then lead to our thoughts and attitudes, which then lead to our actions, which then lead to our results.
Right.
They just focus on what behaviors do I need to change? What actions do I need to change? That's the New Year's resolution. That's why it's not sustainable.
Right.
That's why even when people talk about how long it takes to change a habit, it takes some time. But if we don't change the belief that's driving the thoughts, that drives the behaviors, it's not sustainable. So I've discovered some different food allergies, in my life that I made some adjustments to, and it's really hard to cut certain things out of your diet if I approach it from the place of this sucks. Oh, I just want to eat that. Oh, this is brutal. What am I going to eat? There's nothing to eat. It does suck.
It does.
And it's not sustainable long term. However, if I go back to the belief and I kind of go, okay, you know what? This is actually going to serve me in a different way. I actually believe that I have that first of all, that these allergies exist.
Right.
And I accept the fact that it's actually for my benefit that I don't eat it. And then I remind myself, cognizantly sometimes until it's more subconscious, that if I eat these things, this is how I will feel. This is the result that it's going to be. I don't have to discipline myself into not eating them as much because my subconscious eventually doesn't even allow me to go there. It just is like, no, I'm not. I don't want that. So we need to look back. I would just take a look. If you look at the kind of things that you want to change, instead of just focusing on, okay, what are the behaviors that need to change? What are the habits? Take a step back and maybe go, okay, what's the belief that's kind of driving me in that way? And one of the ways that I like to look at it and challenge some of the clients that I work with is often when we look at other business owners, we go for mentorship, we'll ask them, what should we do?
Right.
Okay, what should I do? How did you do this? How did you grow to 4 locations? How did you, make the step from 2 employees to 9, or how did you hire your wife? What did you do? And I'm going to suggest that that's the wrong question. And rather it was like, okay, what thinking processes did you need to change?
Okay.
So not just what did you do, but how do you think? Because once we start thinking in that way,
Yeah.
we're going to start doing it a different way.
Gotcha.
And the problem is when someone says, well, you need to think about it or look at it this way, our subconscious, and probably even as I've been talking, some of you have probably been saying, oh, that's bull crap. There they go again. I've tried that. That doesn't work.
Right.
Our subconscious will already start dismissing it. And I have had some mentors where I've just had to go, I really want what they have. I believe in the principle that our beliefs will drive our behaviors, and my life is a reflection of my beliefs. So I don't have to agree with it right now, but I'm going to choose to start to explore the idea that I could possibly be open to believing that,
Right.
because that's the result that I want. And as I ventured into that space, it's been a game changer.
Okay.
So that's the one thing that I would just kind of say in wrapping up, particularly with that mindset. Again, we can't change what we're not aware of. So we've got to take some time. Like even today, I wasn't sure, do I have the time to do it? I'm going to spend some time, get on the motorbike and go visit a client this afternoon, because I need some of that time in the helmet to do some evaluation. And that's actually probably going to serve me better today than going back to the office to do some of the busy tasks, because there's some things that I need to kind of process and evaluate through to shift and change, because I'm not getting the results that I wanted in certain areas. So I got to kind of discover, okay, what do I need to shift? Why am I getting the result that I am? So it's really so important to take that evaluation time.
Oh, that's good.
By yourself, with your accountant, with your accountant, go, what are you not aware of that he's aware of,
Right.
that you should be aware of? What is your statement telling you? What's the profit loss telling you?
Right.
Those all tell stories.
They do.
And you're an expert at, telling the story. Most of us, we don't see what you see looking at that paper. And again, as a business owner, you can't change what you're not aware of. So becoming more aware of those things, then help us can identify, okay, what do we need to shift and change?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The beliefs kind of drive that behaviors, and then kind of building off of that habit stack. Just having those small little changes in the beliefs and what you do, that'll slowly translate out into time, into the actions that you put into place, whether it's personal or within the business, and then eventually to those results. You're not just going from here, way down here, hoping that you're just going to miss all that hard work in the meantime.
Absolutely.
Just those little incremental steps, taking the time to enjoy that process, build on those small wins, get that business moving in that right direction, and keep building upon that momentum. I think is a really good point for sure.
Yeah, and I would just kind of add into that, and that is, things need to change in us before they're going to change for us. And it's connecting all of those different principles together that, and it's astonishing, because most of us underestimate or we overestimate what we can accomplish in a week, in a day, but we underestimate what can be accomplished over months and years.
Right.
Like how many have the to-do list that daily, it's like, oh, I thought I'd get way more done today. Oh, I thought I'd get way more done this week. Oh, I didn't get anything done. But we underestimate the power of that stacking small, little things over an extended period of time. and it takes that. And we stop us. So one of the most practical things I did to kind of tie everything together we've talked about is I started telling myself I have enough time. Every time I would hear myself say it to my family members, my friends, a client, I don't have the time, I would go, no, Garth, no, actually I do have the time. Now, I didn't know where or how I was going to do it, but I had to start shifting the belief that I have the time. Garth, you got to just manage yourself better. You got the time. And that was the start of the belief of that. Took me a while I'm still trying to convince myself at a deeper level that I do have the time, but I respond differently. But I have to change that. I have to shift that belief.
Perfect. Right on. Well, Garth, I just want to say thanks again for taking time out of your schedule to hop on the podcast. I know you provided a lot of great insight into the mindset side of this discussion. Looking forward to following up on the next couple episodes with you. If listeners want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to go ahead and do that?
Well, I would direct you to our website, and when I say our, me and my wife work together, and it's yourlimitslifted.com, because we just love helping lift the limits or giving people, I'm going to say giving people the tools so they can lift the limits in their business and their life. And yourlimitslifted.com would be the best place to go, and then just reach out to us through that, and we would love to hear from you.
I'll definitely put that information in the show notes. Feel free to reach out to Garth at any point in time. I personally worked with him on kind of some lifting of my own limits, and he's been very insightful into that and has really helped me push through some things that I probably didn't even know existed at that point in time. So it's really helped me gain a new sense of clarity on not only the professional side of things, but a number of things in the personal life as well. So definitely recommend Garth and his services to anyone that might be interested there. So for the Tax Talk Podcast, I am Jared. Thanks again for listening. Take care, and we will talk soon.
There we go.
Done and done.